you came back for the paper test. So, next I'm going to show you the pens that I tested, and then I'm going to go through a little bit of each notebook again, but not different pens that I like to use or I have used over the years. And all these different notebooks that I've used, and how the different pens work in the different notebooks, what they look like, ghosting, bleeding, that kind of thing. One of them got me. Sorry. So the first pen is the Pilot Razor Point. The Pilot Razor Point is most popular with artists, maybe bullet journalers, people who like to write a nice fine black line. It is a felt tip point pen, but it doesn't bleed a whole lot because it is a very razor point. The next one is this iconic 2A. It's got the little highlighter tip on one side, and it's got this little marker tip on the other side. It's very, very light, so it doesn't put down a lot of ink. Personally, I like using it in my Hobonichi to highlight stuff or to mark off time, kind of like some people use the zebra mild liners for. It's very similar. This next one is a Pilot Metropolitan. They're very popular with fountain pen users, especially entry-level fountain pen users, because they're fairly cheap and you can find them in a lot of places. This is a fine, and it has kind of a dark teal ink in it. Something to know about these is that if you live in a very hot climate, like I live in Florida, South Florida, and so if you live in a very hot climate, the tube sack inside that you fill with ink by squeezing it can burp ink back out at you when it gets hot. The next one is the Pilot Precise. This is the V5. Just a good all-around kind of office pen. Next one is the Papermint Flare in this medium, and it's a green. Then we have the Stylist. It says Y&G here on the label. This one again is one of those pens that's popular with artists, planner people. They sometimes get them from like Jetpens, maybe Amazon. They're not bad pens. They're little. They come in a lot of different colors. They're pretty. The next one is this Sharpie pen, not to be confused with the Sharpie Ultrafine here. This is designed to not bleed, whereas this one is a permanent marker, and while it's not always permanent, it does tend to bleed. Then we have a Schaefer. This is just a cheapy kind of calligraphy pen. They've gotten much prettier. The nib is still a little scratchy on it, but it's got a nice blue ink in it. Then we have the Pentel Tardillo. Weird thing is the Pentel logo has come off of it, as has the name. That's the one actually that leaked. The refill is almost as big as the pen, which is a little crazy to me. And it's got this weird kind of flexy felt point on it, which is kind of cool. It does write nicely, but they do tend to get a little leaky. Next is this Pentel Sign pen. It's got kind of a marker tip. Then the Lamy. This is the AlStar from last year, the limited edition, the Pacifica. And this one is an extra fine, because I do love an extra fine. Big fan of the extra fines. Then these two are both Platinum Plaisirs. I love a Platinum Plaisir. A lot of people are not familiar with them, or they dismiss them. They prefer the higher end Platinums. But these have a really cool feed system. I mean, this looks dirty now, but they tend to stay ready to go for a very long time, like weeks and weeks. You can just pick it up and start writing with it again. They tend to be fairly sturdy. They don't have any weird complications. They're just good all-around pens, and they're not too expensive. I think they run around $28. But this one is the fine. It says on the nib at 03, which this is the fine for them. And then this one is the medium. So it says 05 on nib instead of 03. And last but not least, this is an older version of the Sharpie highlighters. This is in the darkest color, and I picked the darkest color because I wanted to see what would bleed and what wouldn't. And this is by far the darkest color I have. It is almost basically a red marker, even though it came in a highlighter set. And this one does not say Sharpie on it. This is back when Sanford sold them under Liquid Accent, but they are now branded with the Sharpie name. So, that's the pens. As for the notebooks, I'm going to start with this notebook because it has a few different kinds of paper in it. This notebook, I'm going to flip over here, and this is actually the planner page from the last video, the December that I had not used. And this is a nice thick cardboard. So, as you can see, not even the Sharpie, the ultra-fine Sharpie permanent marker bled through. That is how good quality the calendar pages, the monthly pages are for those particular planners, the Smart Planner. Over here on the weekly, it's a little bit thinner, but this is the weekly, half of the weekly spread from last December. And so there you have all the different little pens. And over here, you've got a little bit of ghosting on that highlighter. The Pilot Metropolitan up here, the Sharpie started to bleed through, but overall, again, there's a little bit of ghosting on several of them, but overall, not bad. This page is from ARC. It is from one of the Staples notebooks, and it fits in this. It came with the punched already. I have not repunched it, and so all the same pens again. And over here, there's a little bit of ghosting, but not too much. Again, there's a lot of bleed through with the Sharpie permanent marker, and almost bleeding through with that highlighter. This page is actually from the Levenger Circa system, and it's a little thinner feeling than the ARC paper, but its feels a little smoother. And then it has quite a bit of ghosting. The Pentel pen bled through a little bit. The Pilot marker bled through, or the Pilot fountain pen bled through a little bit. This one a lot, and then this Sharpie is very noticeable. This highlighter down here. This is the Hobonichi A6 from last year. This is the US, or the English version, I should say. Kind of like this cover that it has. The Japanese version does not, but I do like the layout for the Japanese version better. Anyway, so here we have all of the same pens. There is some really nice sheen that is only really visible on with the Hobonichi paper, the Tomoe River paper, with this Schaefer, and it's not really showing up on video, but there's a very nice sheen with that Schaefer. And I mean, it's a very thin paper. There's quite a bit of ghosting going on, but this is really, the permanent marker is really the only one that bled through, which is actually better than the Levenger regular like Circa paper. So that's pretty good. Next, this little Clairefontaine notebook. I love these little things. They have this they're gridded, and then they have like little tabs for different sections. They're great. And this is a very smooth paper, and it's a very good quality paper. Again, there's a tiny bit of ghosting, but only really that Sharpie shows up. This notebook looks a little crazy. It does not look like this when you get it at the store. It's this brown color. It is Markings by C.R. Gibson. I got it at Office Depot. And actually, the cool thing is, it comes with this little page finder stencil deal. And the pages, it's called a bulletin log journal. It's clearly intended for bullet journalers. On the Office Depot website, they call it a bulletin, like a bulletin board kind of, instead of bulleting, which is how it's spelled on the label on the book. But it's a very rough paper, and it is this kind of cream color opposed to a nice fresh white, which some people prefer. It's easier on the eyes, not as high a contrast. There is quite a bit of ghosting and bleed through on this one though, which does not surprise me, because I had been using a Pilot Precise, which is this row here, in it before, and I noticed it's pretty easy to see what I had written on both sides of the page. And the Pilot Metropolitan is really kind of starting to come through as a Sharpie. So, it is an interesting little notebook. It does come with this weird little stencil thing, but it's not great quality paper. Next we have this moleskin that I have had forever. The moleskin, I love the flexibility, and it's got some great qualities, but I have not been overly impressed with the paper. So, we'll see how this test went. And yeah, this is why I have not been overly impressed with the moleskin paper, because you can see almost everything that I wrote. It's by far the worst one so far. But it's such a nice, flexible little book. It's got nice pages, a nice dot grid. It's really unfortunate that the paper isn't a little better. The next is another Clairefontaine. This is French ruled. If you've never used French ruled paper before, it's interesting. You could, if you wanted to, look up online and find out, if you're not French or you're not familiar with it, you could look up how the grid system is used. But it's very smooth. It's a very nice paper. And even the Sharpie marker barely shows through on this one, which is nice. Actually very impressed with this one. Next is a Macellary All at Once, because I love this paper, and because when I am done with the notebook, I tend to take these poly covers off and punch them, and then use them as covers for disc-bound notebooks later. So that is another thing you can do with it. This paper does have a little bit of ghosting, and I'm not really too surprised, because it's intended for like standard notebook uses, you know, like taking notes for class and things like that. It's not intended to be high-end paper, but it is better quality than you would say get from like a store brand. And some of the notebooks have like cool features, like the style pages here, or the 5 subjects are color coded at the edges. It's punched. They're very nice notebooks. Anyway, Mikel Ruiz. And then last but not least, this was a tool notebook that Office Depot put out for back to school, and it actually surprised me with how good the quality of this thing was. So it came with this tab of highlighter flags, and it also came with undated calendar pages. And I'm really kind of disappointed that it was just a back-to-school item. I think we should all lobby for Office Depot to keep bringing it back, because it actually has very good quality paper. It's very smooth. It writes well. It's sturdy enough. So let's try a pen test. And actually, most of this is where the paper was sitting on top of. I had it folded over. It was sitting on top of another page. So there's a little bit of bleed through here, but overall, most of this is from the front of the other page that hadn't dried yet. So I'm even more impressed now with these notebooks. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was informative. And until next time, bye!